We're on to year 3. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. Let's get right to it. We did have a few retirements like last season. This year it was Flutie and Godfrey. Doug Flutie had that one game against the Broncos last season. It was a blowout. I guess he decided now is the time to retire. I did offer him an offer. He didn't really want to come back. Randall Godfrey was a surprise retirement. I really wasn't expecting it. He was a starter the past 2 years. He was still decent overall. He also didn't want to come back. We're now moving on to the re-signing period. Our biggest priority is going to be re-signing LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm going to go through each position, so let's begin. LT had a stellar season last year. We need to use him more on the ground, but he's an even bigger threat as a receiver. I gave him what he wanted. It was a 4-year deal worth $6.6 million per season. His salary is more than all our running backs combined. It's not even close. Lorenzo Neal is a primary blocker for LT going into his 14th season. I'm surprised he didn't retire. He's still a great blocker, and I figure we have the money to spend. I'm bringing him back. I doubt he plays till the end of his contract. Joey Galloway is on his second team in 2 years. He's going to go on to his third team in 3 years. He's not coming back. Rashae Caldwell hasn't done much in his tenure here with the Chargers. I'm also planning to move on from him. Chris Wilson is a backup. Is he great in anything? He's fast. He's also a decent blocker. I did bring him back as he was a cheap contract and he adds depth. Fanoti is the least aggressive lineman I've ever met. He's a decent blocker with good strength. We don't have anyone to take over his spot though. We're bringing him back on a cheap but long contract. The tackle position is interesting. Pratt is a clear starter, but Van Buren and Olivier need a new contract. Van Buren doesn't look great on paper. Then he wanted a 7-year deal. He's not coming back. Shane Olivier is much more enticing as a blocker. He's also much cheaper. I'm bringing him back. DeQuincy Scott was doing pretty well before he got injured. My question is, Sammy Davis regressed after his year-long injury. Will the same happen to Scott? After seeing he wanted a 7-year deal, I kind of passed on bringing him back. Stephen Cooper was the last person on the depth chart. He's not going to return. Ben Lieber, on the other hand, was the first person on the depth chart. He's been improving each season and solid overall in everything he does except tackling. This was a no-brainer. He's coming back. We still have $26 million in cap space, but I won't be bringing back everyone, saving for free agency and the draft. Unfortunately, there weren't many big names that I wanted in free agency. The biggest one being Henry, but we already have a running back. I was interested in bringing in a corner, but I didn't feel confident in Manning or Madison. Remember, Godfrey retired and we need to find a replacement, and I think Roman Pfeiffer is the guy. He wanted a cheap 3-year contract, and let's see if we can sign him. While we're waiting, I considered offering Weaver a contract. He is really expensive, plus I don't like giving 7-year deals. I ended up not offering anything to this position. We also needed to look at tackles. Jeff Backus really intrigued me. I wanted to offer him a contract, but I felt like he's already at his ceiling. Now after 5 days, Roman Pfeiffer, he signed with us. We finally got our first free agent signing, an 18-year pro inside linebacker. I'm just happy we signed someone. He's also good in run coverage, so that helps a lot. He's second on the depth chart, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him regress when the season begins. I did end up skipping the rest of free agency as nothing really interested me. This year's mock draft has us drafting a quarterback. Clearly, I'm going forward with Fields and Rivers, which means I'm going to the scout room again. I was interested in filling out the other tackle position as I don't think Olivier is progressing as much as I thought he would. We also need a backup to LaDainian Tomlinson. Simmons was a decent option, but I decided to spend more time scouting. Simpson is projected to go first overall to Detroit, and I am in need of a defensive end as Phillips hasn't really turned into the stud I thought he'd be. Problem is run coverage, but Greg Floyd caught my attention. Good pass rusher. Run coverage, I think I know who I want with our first round pick. We now go to the NFL draft. Simpson did go to the Lions. Last year we took a tackle over quarterback. Detroit took the quarterback. This year they took a defensive end. We're also going to take a defensive end. Who got the better prospect? We'll find out at the end of this coming season. I feel really good about this selection. In the second round, we selected an inside linebacker. The position is pretty old and we need some young blood taking over, and I think Eugene Parks can do that. I'm beginning to prioritize the run coverage more, if you've noticed. We do have another second round pick that we got in the trade with Arizona. We selected a cornerback with it. Last year we got Roger Clark in the second round. This year, Bill Porter. I'm trying to beef up our secondary. I say I'm doing a solid job at it. In the third round, I went fullback. Morris Hardy will be the eventual replacement of Lorenzo Neal. He's not a great blocker, but the way this team uses their backs, his ability to run and catch will be very useful. We did not have a fourth round pick because of the Arizona trade, but in the fifth round we selected an outside linebacker. Matthew Kennedy is going to be Cooper's replacement. At this point, I'm drafting for depth and positions that need bodies. We also don't have a sixth round pick, but in the final round, we selected a quarterback. With Doug Flutie gone, we need to fill the position of quarterback 3, and Pedro Owen is that player. Before we head to the regular season, as always, the preseason, 1-3, but every game was close. We're going to be the Cardiac Chargers this year, won't we? We did have an injury. Florence seems to be injury prone, but it's only for a week. LT still leads this team as the only elite player on the roster for the third straight year, but for the first time he's regressed. Funny enough, the only thing that regressed was his consistency, which is odd considering how well he's been in terms of production the past year. Even though LT leads the top players on the team, out of the top 7 players on the roster, 4 of them are drafted players, while 1 of them was traded for last season in James Hall. Compare this to last season, the only player who's still there besides LT is Finotti. This team is looking to make a jump this season. I've already made up my mind that Phillip Fields will be the starting quarterback going into this coming season. The position hasn't really changed much other than Owen replacing Flutie, but if Fields can't perform up to the same level of production he did last season, I think we'll have to go back to Rivers, and if he can't do it, I think it's time to move on to a new quarterback. We're at a point now where Lamar Smith is going to continue to regress, and the guys behind him are as good as they're ever going to get compared to last year. I think it's clear that we need to find a decent backup for LT. In free agency, I found Floyd Porter, who is a rookie. I don't know if he was drafted and let go, but before I signed him, I needed to make space. I released Chapman. I then signed Porter to a 3-year deal. He might have been more expensive than the other options, but still 1/3 the price of LT. To me, that's a deal. You probably noticed, but Lorenzo Neal regressed much harder than I thought he would. Last year, he was still really good, but now it looks like Hardy is going to be the starter going into the year. This year, Adrian Woods leads the wide receiver group. I knew he was going to be an important player on this team. In the number 2 spot is Dwight, who's been a solid starter on the team for the past 2 years, while Berrien continues to improve. Last year, Woods was injured at the start of the season, and we didn't get Galloway on the roster until week 3. I think this position is on par with last season, but the potential is much higher in my mind. Galloway was a free agent, again, because he was injured. Again, I don't really know how to approach the tight end position. I have Gates who's slowly improving year over year, but McBride and Wilson aren't really progressing. They're still the same players. I don't know if it's a mistake to keep Gates in, or should I bench him in hopes that McBride is a step up. I don't know. I think we've gotten to a point where we've seen where Ball's ceiling is. This might be as good as he gets, but Wells could potentially be better. He is cheaper than him, and Ball could come in handy as a trade offer in a year or two. I think at this point, it doesn't hurt to put in Wells. I've been holding off picking up a guard because we've had players in Finotti and Goff who were good enough. The problem now is Goff is regressing and putting the team in an interesting position. He's still good enough to be the starter this season, but next year we're going to have to find a replacement. Another interesting position, the tackle spot. Obviously, Pratt is the starter in one spot, but the other belongs to Olivier. He's improved, but not as much as I hoped he would have. We are lacking depth, which means I may end up looking to add another player for this position. Moving on over to the defensive side, I think we're beginning to see the peak of Olshansky. He didn't really improve that much over last season. Sandoval, on the other hand, has improved so much. At this point, he might be the best lineman going into the next season. I'm really happy we traded for James Hall last season. He initially was traded for as a patch job to fill the holes Scott left from his injury, but he's now become an important piece to this team. Phillips has hit his ceiling though, which makes me glad that I drafted a defensive end in the first round. This team should be much better at stopping the run this season or even getting to the quarterback. I might end up regretting giving Labor such a long contract, but as long as Henderson continues to improve, I'm fine with it. Same with Kennedy. This position has gotten better over the previous season, and to be quite honest, I'm surprised Mallard is still on the team. It's starting to look like Edwards is on his way out soon, but he's still very useful, and as long as he's useful and the better option, which he is over Parks, he's going to continue to start. And this is another position that's regressed from last season. I do think we're getting set for the future though. Remember when I was worried that the cornerback position was possibly our worst position? I think it's now our best position on defense. Drafting high will do that for you since we were able to get Clark and Porter thanks to those high second round picks. Compared to last season, it's obvious that almost everyone improved, even Jammer. Heck, even Sammy Davis is almost back to his original 70 overall. Breaking news, Terrence Keel has improved. I repeat, after 2 seasons going into his third with the team as a leading tackler, he has improved by 1 point. I think I'm getting to the point where I must consider moving on from Keel, even though I like him. At free safety, Herbert Williams really jumped up quickly. He was hovering at 69 last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the 80s next season. I think all our trades so far in the series have worked out very well for us. Nate Kading is on the hot seat. He's improved by 1 point, but not able to kick past 40 his first year, and missing chip shots his second year. He's gonna have to step up big this year. Mike Cyphers is the bomb diggity. He's not the best punter, but he does what he needs to do, and I can appreciate that. Now, before we start the regular season, I wanted to look into signing a tackle. Chris Bober was available, solid enough. I did consider giving him an offer, but I wanted to hold off on it and look for a trade partner. I did notice the Bears had some pretty decent tackles on their team. I was interested in Roger Hicks. He is a very good run blocker and can hold his own in pass protection. I had an extra second round pick I got in the Miami trade last season. I sent it for Hicks and a 5th round pick, and I'll be honest, I'm really happy about this trade. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this season goes. This season opener, we take on the Tennessee Titans. Let's see how Phillip Fields' first game of the year goes. Four touchdown passes and 5 interceptions. Field had 5 interceptions all of last season in the 4 games he played. A rough start to the season, but a win is a win. Week 2 is our home opener against the Miami Dolphins. Historically, we're pretty good in week 2. Chargers had every chance to put this game away, but just couldn't do it. A missed field goal after a penalty is making me want to move on from Kading, but this defense can't give up drives like that in the final 2 minutes. First year struggled against Kansas City. Last year it was much closer. This year we have to split with them, right? The score was 33-0 before I benched Fields. I'm beginning to have second thoughts about starting him this season. Was he fool's gold? I'll give him another game. If he doesn't show what he did last season, Rivers may be back in. To be fair to Fields, look at the stretch of games. 3 straight undefeated teams, this time the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's time to go back to Rivers. I should probably commit to one quarterback for the rest of the year, but if Rivers doesn't perform well, I think we need to draft a quarterback this coming offseason. Fields hasn't exactly been lighting it up. After his 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in week 1, he had 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in the next 3 games. Rivers, on the other hand, didn't really show much in his first 2 years with the team. Maybe he's a late bloomer, maybe this is his season. He'll get an opportunity to prove that he's the guy against the Jaguars. Something that Rivers struggled with a lot last season was being able to have a last-minute comeback drive for the win. He did it here today. I'm not going to get my hopes up as I've been burned before. It's also not going to be easy for Rivers for the next 2 weeks as he'll be without LaDainian Tomlinson, who has a broken hand. This is a rough start to the season. 4 of their first 6 opponents have winning records. They now take on the 1-loss Bucks. Phillip Rivers once again sustained a 2-minute drive to get them the lead with less than 90 seconds to go, but the defense let it slip away. That's the second time this season the defense gave up a lead at the end of the game. We're now on to week 7. The Chargers now take on the Carolina Panthers. Don't be fooled by the score, it wasn't as close as it looked. Rivers still performed well. The impact that LT had on the team is noticeable, but he will be back next week. After back-to-back losses, this is the game the Chargers have been looking forward to help their morale, the 1-win Broncos. Phillip Rivers did his best to tie the game up at 17 in the final 2 minutes of the game, but this defense, for the 3rd time this season, the defense gave up a touchdown near the final seconds of the game. Rivers is trying his best. You're going to see that Rivers is balling out this season. The defense has been such a letdown, and compare him to Fields. Fields is clearly not ready to start, but I don't want to get my hopes up for Rivers yet. The schedule this season has been been rough. They now take on the 6-1 Falcons.
Work well done is taking a look at the defense behind the quarterback at his own 14-yard line. Whoop! There he goes with a beautiful spin.
Halfway through the third quarter, Rivers was 3 for 9 for 1 yard. That's why I didn't want to get my hopes up for him. While Fields did a decent enough job, that at this point, I don't know what to do with the quarterback position. We did have our first big injury on the year. Donnie Edwards will miss the remainder of the season with a fractured arm. I put him on IR. I think it's funny that he didn't get much playing time the past 2 seasons. Then when I start him, this happens. After the bye week, we're going to have a much better 7-game stretch. It'll be the Broncos, then the Raiders, followed by 2 tough games against the Chiefs and Saints, then some easier matchups against the Steelers, Texans, and Raiders again. Let's finish this season strong. It's a good thing the Chargers were up by 10 in the final 2 minutes because they almost blew it against the Broncos. Fields did start this game and he performed well. I'm giving him another chance to show me what he can do. This defense, still bad. The battle for gutter supremacy in the division between the Chargers and the Raiders is next. Fields almost threw this game away in the third quarter, but something strange happened this week. The defense carried this team to a win. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it makes me cry. This is now the biggest test of the season. Can they compete with the Chiefs?
Priest Holmes is in his own territory, would like to get his team out to the midfield stripe. Takes the pitch, goes off right tackle, bursts through the hole. Look at him go! The 20, the 10, touchdown!
When we needed Fields to be clutch and do what Rivers has done 3 times already this season, he crumbled. This was not a good showing by him, but the defense did slow down the KC offense, holding them to 10 points. Sadly, the Chargers only scored 7. There was an injury in this game. Floyd Porter will only miss 1 week. I also decided once again to bench Fields in favor of Rivers. Rivers' future in San Diego rides on how well he performs during this final stretch. Big challenge against the Saints.
LaDainian Tomlinson is in the backfield. The ball is at the 40-yard line. And the lead man throws a block. shakes off one tackle, bounces outside, and now it's a foot race. The 10, the 5, touchdown!
For the fourth time this season, Rivers gave the team a fourth quarter lead in the final minute of the game, and had there been more time on the clock, I think the defense would have let it slip away for the third time, but instead they pulled off the upset, giving the team their 5th win of the year, tying last year's record. Now, can they finish with more than 5 wins? This week they take on the Steelers. Down by 14 to start the game, tied it, then the defense and special teams gave them another 14 points. This was one of those rare games where everything came together perfectly on all sides of the ball to give them the win. Regardless of the next 2 games, this has been a successful season. Can we finish with a non-losing record? Up next, the Houston Texans.
David Carr surveys the defense at the 25. Extra receiver is split out. That's the tight end. Even though he's got double coverage, heads to the...
It looks like finishing the season at 8-8 is out of the question. Our defense got completely roasted against the Texans. It's been a common theme this entire season. Our defense is just not where it should be. It doesn't help that Parks got a big injury and Porter was injured again, and for giggles, I put them both on IR. It's the final week of the year. I'm putting in Owens. Had we beaten the Texans, I would have kept Rivers in, but I think drafting a quarterback is more important, so I kind of want to lose. Breaking news. 7th round quarterback isn't that great. I'm fine with this loss. It helps keep us in the top 10 for the draft. Plus, in my mind, I could pretend that we could have won and gone 7-9. To be fair, the defense gave up 3 games this year, so we should be 9-7. This offense needs a lot of help though. 28 overall in yards. It shows too. We were also 29th in passing yards. I don't think we have the weapons or the quarterback to do better at the moment, but I'm surprised we're the 29th ranked rush offense. We have LT back there and he's struggling to break off big runs. I don't know if Gamecast is having a negative effect on stats. We did get a surprise as we were the 21st ranked defense this season. Huge improvement over year 1. An even bigger surprise, 9th in pass defense. If you're watching the games, you probably wouldn't think that'd be right. Our rush defense was ranked 30th, and you probably believe that. The team had a terrible time stopping the run each of the past 3 years. I honestly don't know how to fix this. I think we can all agree that Fields is our Nick Foles. Great when nobody knew who he was, but now that we know he exists, he's exactly who we thought he was. I think he'd be a great backup and can come in if an injury happens, but he's not the future. He was a 6th round pick for a reason. Phillip Rivers, on the other hand, played the best football he's ever played in the series. I keep getting torn on Rivers. I want him to succeed, but I keep making it difficult for him. So I think next season, even if I draft a quarterback, I'm going to have Rivers start and sit the rookie. Do the Alex Smith Mahomes treatment. LT is also showing the stress of carrying the team on his back. They're slowing him down and we need to give him some help. Either a better interior line or some receivers to get the passing game going to stop having to run against a full box. Morris Hardy was our 3rd round pick this past season, took over for Lorenzo Neal. Not the best runner, but still pretty decent. I also like his ability to be a receiving threat. Floyd Porter was a player I signed at the start of the season. I thought he was an upgrade over Lamar Smith, but I think Smith could have been better. I see why he was available. I'm very happy with Adrian Woods this season. More receptions, yards, and touchdowns. I think he's got good potential to be our best receiver on the team. Tim Dwight has been consistent in each of the past 3 seasons, consistently getting lower numbers, but I think we're just not passing as much. I'm very happy to announce that the Nard Dog has arrived. Maybe. Bernard Berrien had a season that's worthy of his overall. I'm hoping he also jumps up in ratings going into the next season. Very happy with him this year. Eric Parker was our number 2 in year 1, hardly touched the field in year 2, but in year 3 he got some production. He's probably not going to be on the team in year 4. I don't know if this is normal for tight end productions, but Antonio Gates has disappointed me. I think he's under contract for 1 more season, so I'll let him play his contract out, then decide to move on or not. This defense was a bit of a letdown this season. Ben Leber was our leading tackler, but he was also our best pass defender, getting 5 interceptions. I was scared giving him that big contract, but he was absolutely worth it. 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Yeah, he was worth it. Jimmy Henderson was the second player with over 100 tackles. He did improve over his previous season. I just want to see consistency in players. This would be exactly what I mean. We still didn't get a double-digit sack leader, but I think we had more sacks this season. James Hall had an even better season than last year. He's absolutely been worth the trade. Hopefully he continues it next year. He's already getting to the back half of his career, so we also gotta hope we can get him into the playoffs before he declines. Greg Floyd was our first round pick this year, and I think he did a solid job. 4 sacks on the year. We didn't have many in general, but I think this is still good. Plus he's a good run stuffer. Jonathan Sandoval exploded last season. The 7th round pick from my first year drafting continues to show why he deserves a shot at being the main guy at defensive tackle. 4 sacks this season, not as much as last year, but still pretty good. Terrence Keel is a player I really want to like, but he's not the kind of player that's going to make game-changing plays in the secondary. I think he's an okay player, but that's about it. Igor Olshansky is a player I thought he was going to take control of the defensive line, but I think he's hit his ceiling. He's a solid player, but he's nothing more than maybe a rotational guy, a backup. I really want him to be good. Just look at his strength. It's 100. Not a lot of interceptions this year, 12 in total, but Roger Clark had his 2nd straight year, 4 interceptions. I think he's going to be our best player on defense for years to come. Again, he had a lot of assists. Bill Porter is not what I thought he was going to be. I was expecting more interceptions. Well, any interceptions, really. Remember, Donnie Edwards' season was cut short. He was doing well before the injury. While Eugene Parks had to end the season on IR, he was one of our 2nd round picks this year. I think he was decent, not as good as Edwards, but he's a rookie. I don't expect him to play as well. Matthew Kennedy was another rookie we drafted in the 5th round. He's a backup. I didn't expect much. Nate Kading had a terrible season, missed easy kicks, couldn't make long kicks. I'm more than likely moving on from him. While Mike Cyphers had the best season so far, higher average, more kicks in the 20 on less punts, he's the bomb diggity. Moving on to the season awards, the MVP was Dante Culpepper. He led the league in touchdown passes. The offensive player of the year was Matt Hasselbeck. I think it should have been Peyton Manning. Aaron Brooks had a pretty stellar season. Michael Vick could have won offensive player of the year, and an argument could be made for Trent Green. Chad Pennington might have gotten offensive player of the year, but he deserved comeback player of the year. Defensive player of the year was Adam Archuleta again. Offensive rookie of the year was Javier Rhodes. I guess for a rookie, that's not bad. Andy Vaughn was the rookie that Mel Kiper thought we should have drafted this season. Who the hell is Mel Kiper? Defensive rookie of the year was Spencer Cook. I think had Parks played the entire season, he could have easily won this award. I went looking for players who we traded away the past 3 seasons. Drew Brees, it looks like he sucks with us. He had a similar season to last year, just more efficient this year. Kevin Dyson was injured near the end of the season, but before his injury, he was looking really good, similar to his 2004 performance. I still think Olshansky and Sandoval are both better players than Fisk, but it's nice to see him keep up his production this year. It looks like it was a smart move to move on from DeQuincy Scott. Now before we go to the playoffs, Vincent Simpson was the other defensive end, the first defensive end taken, while Floyd was the second defensive end taken in the draft. Production-wise, Floyd was better, but based on overall rating, this man is scary. I also looked at their quarterback since they took one after we selected a tackle first overall. Drew Bledsoe is having a career resurgence with Detroit. That being said, Sparks has sit the past 2 seasons, which makes me think it could be a good idea to go ahead and start Rivers next year while sitting a first-round rookie behind him. Since they did make the playoffs at 9-7, they didn't win, but they've had more success than we have in the past 3 seasons. Something that you're going to notice in the divisional round, all the quarterbacks are highly rated. We need to find a quarterback that's already elite to take this team to the next level, or maybe we need to find some weapons to help our quarterbacks grow. Nothing would make me happier than to see a Manning Super Bowl. I don't know why I speak. Indianapolis Colts against the Atlanta Falcons. A pocket passer versus a scrambler. Oh, this would be fun to see in the biggest stage of them all. Surprisingly, the Colts won this one, and Season 3 is now in the books. We keep getting ranked higher and higher each season in the power rankings. 2-14, 5-11, 6-10, 7-9. I think things are coming along, but at some point we need to have a winning record. If not, I may have to blow up the team again.